everyone, and welcome to The Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. Hope everyone's doing great out there. On today's episode, I'm going to do this female portrait today in the painting style using Topaz Studio 2. This is episode number 28 of my Topaz Studio 2 Creative Toolbox series. And if you'll recall, a couple tutorials back, I did a painting of a male, and I promised that I would show you how to do a painting of a female. And I'm also going to link this image in the description below, the original stock image, so you can follow along with me. And so without any further ado, let's get started. Just to give you a little bit of a background, this stock image that I downloaded, I cropped it into an 8x10 crop, and you can crop it if you want to or leave it the way it was. It was more of a panel look, and I felt it didn't need all that extra space on the side, so I cropped it. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate the background layer, and we're going to just go ahead and launch Topaz Studio 2. So I'm going to click Filter, and we're going to launch Topaz Studio 2. Now, I always like to start out in Photoshop, but that's my workflow. But you could really start out in Topaz Studio 2 as a standalone app as well, if you would like to. Let's go ahead and come up to where it says Add Filter, click on that, and come down to the Stylistic section and click on Impression, and that'll open up the Impression filter. I just want to let you know when I'm done making this painting in Topaz Studio 2, I'll send it back into Photoshop. And then I'm going to run up on the screen for you all the settings that I used in Topaz Studio 2. That way you can just pause the video and jot down those settings just so you have yourselves a reference. I thought that would be helpful to you today. Let me know in the comments sections if you think that was a good idea for me to do that or not. I'd really like to know. Before I start moving sliders around, I just want to let you know, these paintings don't come super fast for me. I got to really get in there and play with the different stroke types, the number of strokes, and all the different sliders and things like that. It takes a little bit of time, but to me, that's the joy of editing, where you really get in there and do it. And it's fun. Take your time, play around, and you can do it. It's really not that hard. And just one more thing, and that is to experiment. Try different filter combinations, work with layer masks, just play around and have fun. Well, let's have some fun right now. Now, I'm looking at my notes and I see that I used type 03 for the stroke. And as far as number of strokes, you have low, medium, and high. And if you'll recall from past videos, I talk about low gives you more of an abstract image, medium gives you a little more defined image, and high gives you a very defined image. On this particular image, I didn't want it to be too abstract because this is an elegant model here. So I wanted to use high, so I chose high. But I want to show you something here. You will hear me referring a lot of times when I'm doing impressionistic images using Topaz Studio 2 about little flecks showing through the canvas. I don't know if you can see these little flecks here, but watch when I adjust this brush size here. See how you can really see those flecks coming through? And if you don't want that, and sometimes you do want some flecks showing through, you can come the whole way down here to Texture, okay, and open up the Texture tool. And you have a choice here between a solid background, which is what it's set for now, or the original background. And you can also change the color of the background. For instance, if I go to background color and click this little swatch here, I can change it to like a different color like this, and see that color will show through. And sometimes you want that, okay? In this case, I don't, so I'm going to click on Original. And when I do, all those flecks go away. So if I go back to Solid, you see the flecks showing through. If I go back to Original, you don't. So that's very important. Now let's go ahead and work with the brush size. So let's start to move it to the right. And you can see we're starting to get a more painterly look. And now remember I'm on high, so we're going to see more detail here. But I don't want it to be that crazy looking. I'm going to settle for something right around halfway, I think. Like around a 50. Yeah, right there. How about 51? Now, I'm going for a kind of an elegant, painterly type look here, so I want to be careful here with my brush strokes and things like that, and the volume of paint and things like that. So the next thing I'm going to work with is the paint opacity, and that's this slider right here. So let's start to move it to the right. And as I do, you can see the paint starting to show through a little bit more. It looks a little like thicker. And I'm thinking right around an 82 was where I stopped on. Yeah, and I do like that. And if you want to, you can go ahead and turn this paint volume up just to see what it does. And you can really see my strokes coming through. And that's kind of pretty. I kind of like that. So you may want to look like that. But again, I said I want a more elegant look. So I really didn't turn my paint volume up on this one. I kept it nice and gentle. But you might want to just turn it up a slight amount of paint volume. If you go further to the right, you'll notice another slider will start to appear. And that's this brush volume slider. And I'll just move this to the right so you can see what it does. It kind of changes the effect of the way that paint looks. So play around with that slider. And this point right here, I really like that. And I'll bear that in mind for another painting. But I'm going to stick to my elegant painterly theme today. In case you're new to watching my tutorials, every one of these sliders you see here, you don't have to touch. You only have to touch the ones that you want to use. And again, I say try them all, but only use the ones that really help and disregard the rest. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit so we can just really look at the paint strokes, okay? Isn't that pretty around the eyes and the face? I think it's really beautiful. Now, the next slider I want to play with is the stroke color variation slider. And I used this one in my last tutorial of the man, and it looked really cool. And I was really strong-handed with it. It gave me that Van Gogh type look. Now in this painting, I don't think so, but I think maybe just a little wee bit of it might look good. See, there's none. There's just a tiny little wee bit. Maybe around an 11. Just in the eye. Can you see that little bit of extra color in the eye there? Let me zoom back out. But you notice I'm getting a little bit of color variation in the background as well. That might be too much. I'm going to pull that back a little bit more. I think I originally had it around an 8. Yeah, I had it around an 8. This time I'm going to go 9, just a little bit stronger. But see that little bit of color variation there? I think that's beautiful. What do you think? Next up, I'm going to work with stroke width, length, and spill. 3 of my very key sliders in the impression filter. So let's start out with width. Now, if I go to the right, you can see the strokes get a lot wider. And again, whatever you like, that's what you want. In my case, I want them a little bit not as wide, and I think I ended up with like a -26. And then the length, let me lengthen the strokes out, and you can see what they're doing. See how the strokes are lengthening out like down around in here? But play with it till you find the spot that you like, and I was around a -42. Where's -42, Dave? It's right there. Loving it so far. And then spill. Now, if I take the spill and move it to the right, the paint strokes tend to spill out. Can you see that? Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see it. So and if you double click any of the sliders names, it'll set them back to the default setting. So that's the default setting of 0. So I move it to the right and you can see the paint starts to spill out. In this case, I went to like a 26. I just wanted it to spill out just a wee little bit. And I like that. Now let me zoom back out. Yeah, I like it so far. I'm only using this impression filter today. And the next thing I'm going to do is work with the lighting tool. To open up the lighting tool, just click on it here and let's drag this down. Now what I'm going to use in here is I think I want to pull the highlights back a little bit. So I'm going to pull the highlights back. And where did I go to? Like a -63. Yeah, just to ease off on those highlights, I might just do like a 61. And a vignette. I also used a vignette. Now the vignetting tool is right inside the lighting tool here. And let's see, I'm just going to drag this to the right. Now you notice when I started to drag it to the right, a bunch of other sliders magically appear out of nowhere. Watch, I'll pull it back, see they go away. And I'll pull it to the right and they start to come again. So I just want to give it a little vignetting. Okay, so what did I do? I did a 35 on this one. So the more you move it to the right, the darker it gets. 35. And the cool thing with the vignetting tool is you can change the color of the vignette. You can have different colors here, which is really cool. I'll show you that in other tutorials. But for now, we're just using a standard vignette. And I like how the vignette helps us to fix our eyes upon the portrait itself. The last thing I want to do is add a canvas texture. So let's go ahead and zoom in here so we can see that texture. Boy, I think that looks really cool. We're going to come down to texture here, open it up first, And we're going to find a texture that we like. And the one I settled on was texture number 4, which is this guy right here. Now you don't see any texture yet till I adjust the texture strength, and watch another slider will magically appear as I do that. I'm going to pull the texture strength up and see the texture size slider opens up for us there. And I chose around a 29. I mean, you can make it really strong if you want, but I wanted to keep it, I want to see it, but I don't want it to be like so strong out there in our faces. And then we can adjust the texture size. We can make the texture look larger or smaller, whatever you like. I'm going to leave it right where it was on the default setting, and I like that. So let me zoom back out. I think that little bit of texture will really make this look like a real painting, but it's a digital painting, but don't tell anybody. It'll just be our little secret. I think I'm done here in Topaz Studio 2, but I always like to left click on the image or outside of the image, anywhere in this canvas area here, and see the before. So there's the before and here's the after, and then just really study the image and make sure I'm really happy with it and I really like it. So what I'm going to do is come up here to accept, click accept, and that'll send us back into Photoshop. But if you want to and you like your settings, you can also come up here to File and save the look. Give it a name and save the look so you could use it again on another image, okay? But for now, I'm just going to click Accept, and that'll send us right back into Photoshop. And now we're in Photoshop, and I just want to do one thing, and that's to come down to my adjustment layers and add a curves adjustment. And what I want to do is just add a slight S-curve to add a little bit of a contrast bump. Image seems a little flat to me, which I like it. I think it really adds to the elegant look, but if you wanted a little extra contrast, just give yourself a little S-curve like this. It'll just boost up the contrast a little bit. So let me click this eye, before and after. See that? Just a slight contrast bump, and I like that. And if you feel it's too strong, you can come up and readjust it here, or you can just take your opacity slider and adjust that back a little bit. But I like it. I like that little extra contrast. So again, here's the before and after. So we've come from here, the original image, and went to here. And I'm really, really happy with it. Now, I know what you're thinking, Dave, why didn't you just add that curves adjustment in Topaz Studio 2? Well, I forgot that I wanted to add it, and I could have. But being the fact that I started in Photoshop, just as easy to do it there. Either way, it's going to be the same. And as I promised, here are all the settings that I used in Topaz Studio 2 with the impression filter. And let me know if this is helpful to you, okay? So you may want to just pause the video and jot these down. And feel free to experiment and change these things around. Turn it into the painting that you want it to be. Well, there it is, a female portrait in the painterly style. A nice piece of digital art using Topaz Studio 2, my creative toolbox. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial today. If you did, please give it a like and share it with your friends. And if you're not yet a subscriber to my channel, please subscribe, click the bell notification icon. Then every time I upload a new tutorial, you'll be notified about it. Well, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today on The Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. I'll see you all right here next time. Be safe, be happy, be healthy. And until then, happy editing.